Now let's talk to Lucas, our special guest this week, about what he's been up to. If you're not familiar with Lucas, he is the developer behind the VR social experience, which is super unique, called Where the Thoughts Go, and now working on a YouTube channel called Lucas Builds the Future, which is super, super exciting. And it's an interesting transition as well.
Yeah.
But before we get into that, maybe we should talk about like how you first even got into VR and what led to where you are today.
Okay, so I actually don't. I didn't have a technical background at all, and I've always when the Rift was announced with the Kickstarter, like way back in 2012, I looked at it. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool, but I could never do that because I'm not technical, and I thought that people who coded and made these things were like teenage geniuses who write code in their sleep. So for many years, I was looking at it at a distance, but I was like, I could never do any of that. But as the years came by, I started to think about it, and I started to think of all the things that I wanted someone to make, but that no one seemed to make. And as I, got to meet some friends in the, the tech community, I started to see how much of technology and coding and all of that, it looks harder than it is because they have all those words and the vocabulary, and it just, it seems like a different language. But when you break it down, it's like, it's not as difficult as it seems. So in 2016, I had a big breakup and I needed to get my mind off of things. So I just started going to hackathons and doing VR and, getting more and more excited about it and building things that were weird and that I liked. And turns out that that's really valuable, just doing things that you personally really care about, but have a unique perspective, things that embody you as a person. And even if you don't have technical mastery, if you're not like a super technical person, if your work is your perspective, it usually stands out, and that's enough. And that's what Where Thoughts Go was. I think in the end, it was just, it's not that I'm like a crazy good coder or anything, but because I knew enough to build something that was unique, it ended up doing well. So it was really just a crazy, messy process. I tried to get into VR for like 4 times, and I failed 4 times, and it got in on the 5th. The breakup helped a lot. And yeah, it's, lots of years of fighting imposter syndrome of like, oh, people are going to find out that I'm not really, that I don't know anything.
Yeah.
But then you start to see that no one knows anything and everyone's winging it. And that's when I really started to get comfortable.
There's actually a really nice suggestion as well to people who are interested, like don't wait for that miracle to appear, but kind of like, just go head on in and see what you can learn and take on good advice and just try and improve every day.
So Where Thoughts Go, can you, I'm sure some folks have not tried it. What is it all about? What can you do in this experience?
So Where Thoughts Go is a social VR experience where set in a universe where human thoughts are sleeping creatures. So you enter these worlds populated by these little orbs, and each one of them is a voice message left by another user who was there before you were. You can wake up these little creatures by touching them to listen to the voice messages that other people left behind. And to progress in the experience, you need to create your own creatures and answer increasingly more intimate questions and leave your voice messages behind for others to find. So it's very intimate. You get to explore these parts of people that, usually don't get to explore. And VR adds a layer of intimacy and immersion that it's completely counterintuitive, because I never thought that it would work as well as it does. But it's very emotional, and there's lots of interesting things that happen, at a philosophical level that I think are cool. But that's the general gist. It's a social experience where you just share intimate shit anonymously.
How did you come up with that?
I go out to I go out to bars a lot on my own. Not anymore, of course. But I've always did this thing in which I just started having conversations with strangers, and I just love to listen to their stories and get really intimate really fast with people. And I guess that translated into VR, where I created this VR outlet where I could have infinite amount of intimate interactions with strangers. And you learn a lot from those things, because there's just so much human wisdom that you only obtain once you have like a deeper relationship with someone. But if you can make that accessible, so you can just skip all the small talk and go into like the thick stuff, there's a lot you can get out of that. But originally it wasn't a VR experience. I was trying to do a phone app.
Interesting.
But I made it in VR because I didn't know how to make a phone app, and I knew Unity, and it was like a happy surprise. It just worked out way
Phone
better.
app? What kind of phone app?
It was like you would like travel little like constellations of messages. You could listen to people and leave your own, but it doesn't work nearly as much because like VR is a really good medium for focus, and there's something really important about not having external noise and just being like deep into a VR world that helps a lot with intimacy and you taking other people's intimacy seriously. When you're on a phone, there's like everything's competing for you. Notifications are competing for you. It's really hard to get people into a certain mental state. So yeah, my life is just a series of happy accidents, but Bob Ross was not wrong. And it's
with Where the Thoughts Go, was that your first released app, like game experience on any platform, or had you released stuff before that? Okay.
So I actually started with the HoloLens. That was the first thing I released 2 apps and made like 3 projects with this before I could do, before I got into VR, because actually virtual reality is way harder to make than augmented reality.
Interesting.
Don't tell anybody I told you this, but it's so much harder and people don't know. It's really hard to impress people with AR and really less so with VR. But yeah, I made a couple of apps for this. And the cool thing is that at the time, only boring enterprise people had these, which means that anyone who's just having fun with it just like stands out like a sore thumb because everything that was being done with the HoloLens was just so boring.
Yeah.
So yeah, I did a couple of these to learn, and then I moved into VR because I started to see that VR could do some things that AR couldn't. But I started in AR first, VR second.
And what were the AR projects like? What were the basis of them roughly?
So I made a AR chemistry app, which is like a periodic table you can load up anywhere. You can look at atoms, combine them, make molecules. It was like an education thing that I did specifically because I hated chemistry, and I was like, can I make this fun with AR? It was a simple project and it did well. Then I started to get a little weird. I made an augmented reality version of Snake. So, but the twist is that, you play as a snake in first person. So you walk around, like you put this on, you walk around your environment, you collect these little burgers, and the tail starts growing out the back of your skull. So you start to create your own obstacles as you move through space, which is really fun. And it gets you to engage with your environment and climb on furniture and do all sorts of crazy shit that games usually don't make you do. Yeah. And then some other audio visualization stuff, like some audio reactive holograms that react to real world audio. So you can just place a bunch of stuff around you and start playing an instrument and it all moves and breathes with you, or you turn on a stereo and it all comes to life. Lots of little things like that.
And so your education up to that point, like, did you like study like computer science or anything like that, or any sort of like anything that would help you with this kind of like endeavor that you ended up going into?
So I do have a computer science degree that I got in 2 years because I was from Brazil and I was trying to find a way to get into the United States to do cooler stuff because it's a little bit hard in Brazil. And the only way I could get a visa is by being a student. So I did enroll in college and I did technically have a computer science education, but I never went to class, really. I picked like a mediocre college that would let me do a 4-year degree in 2 years. And I would just ask the teachers of like, can I just learn this on YouTube? And I would come in for the tests. And most of them, with the exception of one, which was like my arch nemesis, would let me do that.
Wow.
And so technically, yes, but really in practice, I learned it all on YouTube. And I think it's important to make that distinction.
And I think this is something that is reoccurring and something we've seen a lot on the show when we've had developers on the show, like Guy, for example. He's pretty much self-taught, and I think it sounds from your perspective that you learned a lot of the most important stuff outside of like college or university.
Yeah, I mean, who's going to teach you VR? How to make VR?
Right.
No one's going to.
Right.
It's kind of amazing though, like the state what the internet is in, that you can have like the perfect teacher kind of in your own computer. It's amazing because I learn a lot of the stuff that I do through that platform as well, and it's. You learn so much new stuff, and then so much old stuff is on there as well. So.
But I mean, it's also a big step to move from Brazil to the United States, just to kind of follow your dreams, because like we know, of course, Ana Ribeiro, who made Pixel Ripped. She's also from Brazil, We sometimes, we also notice that they're like, it's pretty challenging, for example, to get a headset to Brazil even, or buy one there. And it must have been so hard for you to maybe get started over there and then make that step, because I'm sure you wanted to, like, you have family in Brazil too. So it's like you're leaving your family for, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and just to be clear, when I came into the States, I didn't even know what I was going to do. Like, VR wasn't even an option. I was just like, I'm not happy in Brazil, and I know that if I stay here, I will not be happier. So I'm just going to try a complete change in environment and see what happens as a result. So, yeah, once I started to, because, when I went to the United States, I didn't have any friends. I had to start my life from scratch. But once you do that and you're starting from life from scratch again, you start to consider things that you wouldn't otherwise, because you're like, no one knows me. I don't know who I am. Might as well try this new thing, because
And
why
it's
not?
funny you say that, because I experienced this a lot when I was growing up, because I moved every 3 years because my dad was in the army. So basically every 3 years you could like reinvent yourself or like improve things that you didn't like, when you in your previous location, you could say, oh, I'll tweak that a little bit and I'll become this different person, and you kind of evolve almost, don't you? So it's kind of interesting, but it is a very brave move to do it under your own steam. Obviously I was forced to do it in my circumstances. But it's interesting, like, so when you got into developing like Where the Thoughts Go, and then you released it, because it was originally released on Go, did it, or Gear VR?
It started with PCVR, Steam and Oculus, and then it released on Oculus Quest last year.
Okay, awesome. And like, how has the reception been of like that app? Because it's quite innovative and it stands out as completely unique. Like, there isn't anything else like it out there in VR right now.
It was really strong core audience that's intensely passionate about it, and as like a group of people who just don't get it and get no enjoyment out of it. And then you have everyone in the middle. But I kind of like things like that they have a group of people that are like hyper passionate about it, and sometimes it comes at a cost of some people not understanding what the experience is about. But I think it's just a trade-off of making unique things. But it's been really good, especially critically, and it gave me all of the accreditation and the awards and the press that I needed to get another visa to stay in the States. So it all worked out pretty well. And yeah, it was cool. And a lot of people that I know, it's their favorite VR experience precisely because it's unique. Although, you would never get the same thrills that you get with like The Walking Dead or something like that. But you will get something new. It's what I want in VR, honestly.
It's welcome.
Yeah.
It's welcome,
and
sure.
It's kind of moving as well, like, because it's kind of random, isn't it, who you get in terms of like their experience. And some of them can be super emotional, some of them get super deep as well. Having tried it myself, some of them do get like super deep into like what happened in their life, because it's like, tell me about like a time that you've fallen in love with someone or something like that. Am I remembering this right? And they go into super detail about it, and bearing in mind they're sharing this with complete strangers because it's anonymous, of course.
Because that anonymous like kind of feel to it. Like, people are feeling more free to like share something like that than they probably would have when they were actually physically talking to someone.
Or assigned to a name or something.
Well, and next to that also, you mentioned the bar. Like, some people are kind of anxious to, be social in real life, but this kind of gives you the opportunity to kind of experience it for the first time, where you share something, but you don't see this person, but you know that someone is going to listen to it. So you can kind of start kind of rolling into that. So it's almost like the bar without the people, but you just can't see them, but they're there.
It's an introvert's dreamscape.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's true.
Yeah. So with that, like, did you get involved with like Oculus or anything like that to be like part of their start program, or was it just a completely self-funded app?
Oh, it was self-funded. I did join Start, but I think the only way to do interesting things is, especially as an outsider, because no one fucking knew me. They didn't know if I could actually finish anything. And actually it's still like, I actually try to get some projects funded that are like really weird and unique, and people actually are still hesitant to give me any sort of funding because it's like, there's nothing like this. We don't know if it's going to work. But that's precisely what makes cool projects. And we can talk about that. But yeah, I was pretty much on my own. And that's when coming and being in like a one-man team really helps. You have runway. You don't need a lot of money to build things, but it is exhausting, and there is there's it drains a lot out of you doing a project like this for 1-2 years, which is one of the reasons why I'm segueing into YouTube projects with VR and AR.
Yeah, and before we touch on that, like, have you considered like releasing some of these more interesting ideas on like SideQuest, for example?
Yeah, it's just that there's like I care a lot about polish and perfectionism. So by the time you develop something that it has a certain level of polish, it's not Quest ready anymore. But I will try to find projects in the future that I can throw on the on SideQuest. But it's like, I guess I thought about it, but it's like, I can't post things that are unpolished online. I just have this thing. Maybe it's something that I need to overcome and be better at. But yeah, I'm trying to find the happy middle ground, actually.
It's difficult. Yeah, it's difficult. It is difficult.
Yeah, I mean, when we spoke to Zach last week, about Vertigo, he had like this, like giving a release date, it's like, okay, now it's really gonna come out. So as a developer, it's like you're working on it in your own bubble. So you have no idea what people are gonna think of it from the outside. It's the same for us when we upload a video, right? It's like you have no idea. You think it might be good, and then when you upload it, everyone loves it. You're like, well, I thought it was okay. So I mean,
but he gave himself a hard dedeline, and had to stick with it. That's the point there, I guess.
So he didn't use full. Or he didn't use
No. He was a bit more specific.
Yeah.
But maybe we can talk about this transition then from like VR dev into
maybe
like.
First,
go on,
maybe first we can, because we have quite a few questions from the chat.
Okay, sure.
As well,
sure.
maybe on this, since we're still on this topic. So first we had from Paradise Decay. Did Lucas already check out Real VR Fishing? The photogrammetry and animation in that game is superb.
I have not. I am checking it out right now.
Real VR fishing. Good suggestion.
Wait, they use photogrammetry in that one? I didn't know that.
Apparently, according to Paradise Decay.
It looks real for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, they're super clever. Yeah, they're mixing 360 photos and real-time elements. Yeah, this is clever. Yeah, I'm looking at the trailer.
Yeah, all right. And then we have from Waffle, interesting name. He must be Belgian. He asked, how long did it take for you to make the game?
So I was learning how to code as I was making it. So I actually rebuilt it from scratch 4 times. And this is something that's going to happen when you're new. You start to make so many mistakes and they start to add up on top of each other to the point that it's quicker to rebuild the app from scratch than it is to, fix those mistakes because they're just so fundamental. And they're just like tearing the whole project down. So like the first version of the game, it took like actually 4 months to make the first version, but I rebuilt it I had to rebuild it 3 more times. So it ended up being like a 1 year and 2 months development cycle. But that's part of it, it's part of the sacrifice. But yeah, and then I got to a point that I was polishing it too much, to the point that I was like, wait, no one cares about it. I should stop and release it.
So,
which happens a lot.
So, but that's kind of interesting, because in the end, usually if like a bigger dev studio, they can't just start over every time, because in the end you need to deliver a product, you have investors, so how do you manage that? Because in the end, I mean, you need money to live, but you also need money to make your next project or sell your project that you're working on.
Yeah, for most of my life, I was always on the verge of bankruptcy, and money would just appear magically when I needed it. There would be an opportunity that would work. But the way really that I actually funded my education is that initially, when I was doing HoloLens projects, where's the HoloLens? Okay, cool. I bought a HoloLens when I had student debt, and I don't know why I bought this. It was such a bad financial decision to force myself to I need to make money with this, otherwise I am screwed. And then I basically, because there was almost no mixed reality developers developing for this, I got 1 or 2 or 3 contract gigs in which they basically financed me learning how to make stuff for this.
Wow.
And then I,
awesome.
and then I did that to pay for my education and all that stuff. But then I actually got like a small investment on Where Thoughts Go. It was someone who was like, I don't know what this is, but I like you. Here's some money. I was like, okay, thanks. And yeah, then I got a grant later. It was something that happened that I was lucky with. And now the Oculus Quest sales are helping a little bit. So it's this constant of just like things are happening.
Yeah.
And I've been trying to live this philosophy of like, think about money all the time so you never have to think about it at all. As in, every time you meet someone who's done something really weird and artistic, you're like, so how'd you fund this? And you just keep asking those questions all the time and try to find, if there's something that's a good fit for what you're doing.
Yeah.
And
So that's
if
why
you're doing that all the time, money appears.
And because
magically
that's
one
why I was wondering that, because I have met you many times. It seems like you're at every event. Like I think at VR Days I'm in Amsterdam and suddenly you pop up. I'm like, where the heck did you come from? It's like you're everywhere, connecting with everyone. Of course, like learning from everyone. And yeah, I think it's a good tactic.
being at conferences was instrumental. Like everything. All the major connections that made me make the main decisions that I did, I made it at conferences.
Mm-hmm.
I started Where Thoughts Go because I went to a Unity conference and there was a Sundance Film Festival panel where they were saying, we want weird storytelling VR experiences, and we don't care if there's, if there's no reference for it. And I was like, oh, maybe I could turn Where Thoughts Go into that. And then I started doing it. Mm-hmm. And then I met someone at GDC who led me to the grant. Yeah. So going to conferences is definitely really important, I think, as an independent, because you are your sales team.
Yeah. And now,
interesting.
Now you're one of us.
One of us. We should talk. We should talk about that transition. Like, where did the idea of then? Okay, now I'm going to create content on YouTube, and that's going to be like the plan going forward.
Okay, so as you're all creative people, and you know what it is like to have lots of ideas, and you just can't work on all of them. Well, I was like, how can I work on all of them? Is there a way to make this happen? Now, I did have the experience of working on a project for like 1-2 years with Where Thoughts Go, and that was cool, but I'd much rather do 20 projects in 2 years than one project every 2 years. And because VR and AR is so new, there's like so much crazy shit that you can make that maybe it doesn't have any commercial application, or maybe it's a megalomaniac project that is basically no way you can make money off of that or turn it into a startup or anything. But the idea is so cool that it's worth building. And I was like, maybe I could fill that gap, right? And do all these crazy ideas that I have that I can't sell, but the story of making it is so interesting that it's worth making. So that's been something I've been thinking about in the past year and a half of like, all these things that would be amazing if someone made them, but there's no incentive to make them because there's no money in it. So I've been slowly trying to think of like, how can there be a way for me to build these crazy projects and start conversations and start controversy and just make VR exciting, especially for the average person. But also, create a pipeline in which it's sustainable. And that's where Lucas Builds the Future started. And I was like, starting with the time machine is a cool way of starting this whole concept. And again, it's something that a lot of work, can't sell it, 7 terabytes of video. What am I going to do with that? But it's cool enough that it, like, when people watch it, hopefully they look at VR in a completely different way. And if I can do projects every month in which people are completely looking at VR and AR completely differently every month, that to me is progress for the whole industry. Especially if you're reaching the average mainstream person, because then they're like, oh, it's not just games. It's like, it's a world breaker, literally, because, we get to mold what reality looks like. So yeah, I was thinking about it. And then in February, I was actually at my low point with VR. I was like, burned out. I was tired. I spent 8 months trying to fund my VR experiences and no one would give me money. And I was like, you know what? I love this thing, this time machine. I don't know if it's going to work. I'm going to spend 3 months on it. I'm going to give it all my all and see if the world accepts it and see if the world cares. If the world cares, great. It's a new career path. If the world doesn't care, I know they will never care because I put in my all. So that's what I did, and it worked out good. So thankfully,
how do you define like care? In that sense, I'm curious. Is it like just positive reactions in general?
Whether it really
or?
affects people.
Okay.
Whether it affects people at a deep, deep human level, because I don't want to just do things that are funny. Like there's plenty of people who do that, Michael Reeves, who do projects that are funny and but don't necessarily show you what new, the brave new worlds of tomorrow. So something that affects people at a really strong level, but also is easy enough for the average person to understand that it can go viral every time you create something, because you need that, unfortunately. You need to be going, if I am to make this series long term, I need every project to go viral to some degree somewhere.
Yeah.
So yeah, that makes it simple so everyone can understand it, but also have enough depth that it can really affect people.
Yeah, but
that to me is caring.
It's interesting because when you say viral, then most people think about viral in terms of viewers on YouTube. But viral can also mean viral in your network of people. If people see this from, let's say, a business perspective, and they're like, hey, this is cool what you're making. Are you going to make more episodes? Maybe we could do this and we could work on it together. So a lot can come out of a video. That's what I'm saying, in many different aspects.
Yeah, respect points are really important, actually. They open lots of doors. And this is something that I got with Where Thoughts Go, even though I didn't get crazy numbers. But with the time machine thing, I also try to make, sorry, not to get into it too quickly, but I also made a version for YouTube, version for Reddit, version for TikTok, everywhere. And on Reddit, it got 5 million views, which was cool.
Wow.
YouTube didn't trickle down as much, but it's a longer term strategy. And TikTok and it just didn't work at all. Got to work on that.
Oh wow, I'm surprised actually.
It's the algorithm. It's tricky. Yeah.
We know the daily battle with the algorithm for sure. So like maybe you can talk about like how did this idea come about with the time machine, and then maybe for some people that didn't watch the video, like briefly kind of outline the process that you went through to get that up and running.
Okay, so should I tell them what the time machine is? First,
sure.
like a general overview.
Sure.
So basically, the whole concept of the project is that I spent the entire year of 2019 wearing cameras on my face. These cameras, in fact, these are spectacles. They record live from my perspective in stereoscopic 3D. So
and they look
I spent
awesome.
the whole year traveling around the world, recording my life, because in 2019, I decided to become a digital nomad. So I would move countries every month or so. And then in 2020, using virtual reality, I built a time machine that lets me go back and relive moments from my past. And that's the general concept. As to how it came about, I was not building a time machine at first. I was building like a memory palace. So I could, just walk around and see those memories and relive them in that way. And I actually made a 3-minute video that I was going to release of the memory palace, and it was ready to go. But I realized that every time that I described it to people, I called it a time machine, and that's when it would click. And then just before posting, I was like, well, what if I rebuild this as a time machine? Isn't it that much more compelling? And turns out that it was. So it was this iterative process of like, slowly trying to find out what that balance is between an idea that's simple and something that's, also really interesting. And it just happened slowly. In quarantine was when it really kicked. And I also, just like Where Thoughts Go, I did this video from scratch 4 times.
4 times? Oh my God, no way, seriously.
Wow.
Especially trying to find out what my voice is, I was like, what's the style? Is it going to be narration? Is it going to be vlog? Do I sound like Vsauce? Do I sound like this guy? What's my voice? I didn't know. So I just
the thing is with your video is because it's a quite lengthy video, but there's so much work and effort that has been put in that video, and just knowing that you redid that video so many times, like we as we all make videos, we know how much time consuming making a video can be. That is an incredible amount of devotion.
So when you say redoing, that means not only did you sometimes record yourself or record something, you're like, this is not good enough, needs to be done again, but also maybe the storyline of how you were going to explain the time machine. So like hustling the whole puzzle and trying to put it together in a different way.
It's basically, everything from the most basic things of like, what is my voice in this? What is my character? When does comedy come in? When do things get serious? What is the style of comedy? And all the way to, like, how do you, which parts do you focus on? Which parts do you leave out? But initially, the first version of the video, it was a memory palace, and I made 10 minutes of it. And I was like, this is not bad, but it's not great, it was like people liked it, but they just liked it. And whenever I send something to people and they're like, "Oh, that's cool," I feel like a failure.
Right.
Yeah, like it's kind of like all or nothing. You either make them go like, "Whoa, what the fuck," or don't do it at all. So I just kept trying to get to that, to
you
the
should
explosive reactions.
You should totally open up those old cuts of the video, like as a Patreon tier or something like that.
Oh boy,
Oh boy.
People would pay for that,
They're
especially
so
like
cringy.
if it goes bigger from here, then you've definitely got an audience there to check those older videos out. But what? So you come up with the idea, you've made the video, you've released it. What was the how did that feel, like releasing the video into the wild and then the reaction that it got? Like how did you find that?
I'm glad it went viral on Reddit. I thought I was gonna do better on Twitter. I think Twitter does Twitter shut down posts that have YouTube links in them?
No, it's just that I think
Twitter is usually
different
the
medium.
platform where someone watches a video. That's where it comes down to. It's like you share an opinion in text form. That's kind of what it comes down to.
I was glad it went viral on Reddit, that it went to the front page and all of that, because I designed this project to go viral, and that basically confirmed in my head that you can design projects to go viral from the get-go, the way you build them. So it's like that's important because you need that in the long run. But what I didn't really expect the response on YouTube. The comment section was fucking insane. Like people were writing these essays, and the subscriber to view ratio was really high. Now it lowered, but it was like 10%. So every 10 people who watched it, one would subscribe. So even though it didn't has 100,000 views, 150,000 views right now, even though the numbers on YouTube weren't crazy high, it seems to really have made an impact on the people that do watch it. So I'm like, okay, maybe the YouTube algorithm will be kind to me one day and start showing this to people a year, 2 years from now, if I keep making this stuff. But it was, I was happy. And I was happy that people liked that I got serious, because in early versions of the video, I was trying to make everything a joke all the time because I was afraid of losing people if I stopped joking around. But looks like they like depth. And that gives me so much hope that people like depth, because sometimes you can forget, especially in the age of today where is it worth to make a 30-minute thing and spend all this time doing something that's, more long form and more thoughtful when you can just do 10-second clips on TikTok?
Especially
it's like this show, we could put together a 10-minute recap of the news every week, but we don't. We do it in this like long form format.
It's very challenging because we're living in a time where people get bored pretty quickly. We're used to just scrolling through videos, not really watch them anymore. Just get to the interesting part, watch it, and then just get to the next one. Netflixing, like you can pick everything you want or you don't pick it. So having a video that long and then going serious, because YouTube usually as a platform is more about the entertainment part. Finding something that is more serious is usually a little bit more hidden. So having something like this, and as you said, like people really getting into it and listening to what you have to say, I mean that's a accomplishment on itself.
And I think the reason why it was so successful though is because it had that nice balance of being deep, being super interesting, a medium that people don't really know that much about, and also just being really entertaining and well edited as well. I think it was a combination of a lot of things, that made it super successful.
Yeah, I am trying to make this a very unique format in which it's half fiction, half nonfiction, in which is going to be jumping between the two. And there's tons of stuff I want to do with that, but it's especially when it comes to dramatizing certain parts of the building process. So it's more. So it feels like an actual story with conflict and twists and turns, which is not very common for YouTube videos. But I think one concern that's important to bring up is there is such a thing as being too original, and being too original can hurt you a lot, actually, of doing something that's so new that it just goes beyond to most people. And this is something they probably have to deal with as well. You have to be original on the edges. You can't be too original to the point that you're like people don't get it. You have to be just original enough, and you have some of the old, so people understand what you are and they can enjoy the uniqueness.
Well, especially with this video you made, right? It's about VR. Well, most people on YouTube, they have never really seen VR, and they're like, what is this? And like we see that every day where people learn new stuff. So you like, even with our videos, we don't want to get too complicated with the whole VR thing. So like the way you did it, like you explain what VR is and you explain what time traveling is. So you have the best balance where it's like a little roller coaster, but it doesn't go too up and down, but kind of keep it in the middle. So I think you did did a great job with that.
I think as well, like the reaction, like, I saw an article about like the video and Gizmodo, tech website that I view regularly. And I think you were on, like, you got asked to be on some TV shows? Did you get asked to get on some TV shows? Which is pretty crazy. Like, how was that experience?
No, this was super cool. So last week I had an interview with Kelly Clarkson at the Kelly Clarkson Show, which is an NBC show, which means that VR has made it to a housewife show.
Yes.
That is amazing. Yeah. Yes. And to me, that was like, yes, this can actually be mainstream, right? You can actually make things that people who are not usually connected to the VR market care about. But that was actually the biggest thing for me, is just knowing that, you can tell a story about VR, that American housewives care about. And it's, not that housewives don't do VR, but for the most part, the demographics don't line up. Okay, it's just how it is right now. That was cool. And so it's that mix of making something that can go viral, making something that has depth, not only so you can create a conversation and actually meaningfully change how people think about this, but also so you can have the press thing. So it's a press cycle on a viral and a press cycle on every episode, which again is needed if you're going to do something that's higher quality and it's only like one episode every 45 days.
And what about the future episodes, like your plans for the future? Are they going to be VR focused, or is it generally VR, or is it other tech, or what's the kind of plan for the future?
I'm going to be jumping between VR and AR for the next 5 episodes that I have scheduled.
Nice.
You're working on 5 episodes at the same time?
So here's the thing. I have some ideas for episodes and I'm like, this will be really good. But I should do this one later. So some ideas are just like simmering in the background and I have like good episodes structured for them. And some of them are like, I should do this right now because of the timing and because of the series. Because I want to do some VR things that are VR and AR things that are fairly controversial. But for me to go into controversy, I need to first like just earn the trust of people a little bit. Do a couple episodes where everyone's happy, so I can then make the episodes that split audiences. So there's also that. But I'm going to start with VR and AR in the next 5 episodes. And then I want to move into other aspects of technology, of AI, of food technology, and doing creative, crazy projects with brain interfaces and all of that. But VR and AR is where my niche audience is. It's where most of my ideas are because it's what I do. So that's what I want to start with. But always exploring things that are underexplored. So episode 4, for example, will be focused on the future of propaganda. And I think that's a big thing with VR that people don't talk about, because they talk about VR as being as this beautiful empathy machine, but you can make people feel empathy for terrible, terrible things, and make them, it's just you can brainwash people, and people don't talk about it. So I'm like, I'm going to build something that brainwashes people and see how the world reacts. So yeah, those kinds of things that really, move conversation and make VR exciting again, because I've been I feel like the innovation in VR has been a little bit decreasing in the past 2 years. People are starting to find out what works commercially and what doesn't. Mm-hmm. So people are moving on to making more commercially based decisions rather than this is really cool and it needs to exist.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, I totally agree. But yeah, I'm interested in these like controversial episodes. I think they're going to be super fun.
Yeah, the series actually, I wanted to start with an episode that involves food tech that I've always wanted to do. But I need a year of practice before I can do it. But there's like the controversy ones are the ones I'm excited about too. But I'm trying to do them very carefully. Yeah. So I'm actually going to bother you a lot about this because I don't want.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Sure.
Responsibility.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, absolutely. Once you build that audience, you've got a responsibility to look after them, of course. Maybe we should take some questions. If anyone's got a question in the chat for Lucas before we move into releases, then go ahead. But it's been super interesting to sort of pick your brain about, how you got to this point, because I think a lot of developers took a similar path, just kind of like building stuff, breaking it, learning from it, building again, that kind of mentality.
Yeah.
But like a developer becoming a YouTuber, that's something that I rarely see. But it's interesting. Like we have seen it the other way around, where, for example, Brandon from Stress Level Zero is, he was a YouTuber and then he went into making games. So that's the other way around. But I've never seen it the way you do it, where it's like you make a complete series on something.
Yeah, I haven't seen a lot of people that really combine this kind of, just good amount of creative and technical knowledge with storytelling. And yeah, like there's lots of DIY on YouTube, especially with tech, is huge, but most of it is like fun projects or things that are funny, but are not really like, they don't have a lot of meat in them. Even though I love all the Michael Reeves videos where he tases people.
Yeah, they're brilliant.
So maybe there's a way to do that, but to me it was more like, you can get 100 times the audience, and I can do projects 20 times faster, and I don't have to wait for the technology to catch up with the mainstream public. I can just do whatever idea I want to do right now, instead of having to wait until the headsets get eye tracking and stuff like that. So that's really the main reason.
Well, you're creating your own format. That's what you're doing, and then in the end, people will kind of like the first one was pretty good start. So
try telling a creative person to wait to be creative.
It doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
No, we've got some good questions from the chat. How did you nomad with all that hardware, or did you only carry the Quest?
I carry the Quest and the Rift S, and I only have like one big bag and a carry-on bag. You don't need much to live actually in this world. I don't own furniture, and I don't want to own furniture for the foreseeable future because it's just dead weight. But I think I might just use the Quest from now on, especially the Quest 2 is what I think it's going to be. I'd love to have just the Quest 2.
Absolutely. And where are you living right now, by the way?
I'm in the Bay Area, actually. I stopped traveling because of COVID. But I'm going back on the road in September, but focus on rural locations, so nature.
Interesting. Yeah. Interesting.
You can save a lot of money, too. It's cheaper than people think. It's way cheaper than living in any major American city.
That's interesting. Yeah.
We got a few comments as well. Like first we had VRIDs and C saying that Lucas is the doppelganger of a famous French artist called Orlezon. Orlezon. I never heard of him before, but
wait, Orlezon?
Or L-S-A-N.
Oh, okay.
I knew who that is. And then we have D1360 VR saying we do need Snake for Quest. So maybe you should still release that title.
Snake room skill. Snake Arena.
No, that actually wouldn't be hard.
Snake Arena sounds like a pretty fun title.
Happen. And then we have quite a few people who are actually saying that they actually just subscribe to your channel, and there are a couple of people asking what your channel is as well. But I believe we posted it in the description already, or we'll do so after.
Yeah. If not, go check it out. It's Lucas Builds the Future. Yeah.
Indeed.
And we've got one more question from Fabza, who says, what do you think about the innovation happening in Dreams within PSVR?
Biggest innovation hub in VR, probably for the foreseeable future. There's going to be, it's going to be the place where we're going to see the most unique VR gameplay mechanics, I think, for the next couple of years. It's going to be the best title in sort of like the amount of experiences you can get for the money you pay for. Mm-hmm. I adore Dreams. I'm so sad Sony owns it, so it can't be on PC.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'm gonna be like checking that out all the time because I think it's gonna be the most innovative place in VR when it comes to interaction. I almost envy a little bit because it's so fun to build stuff there. And
I think we mentioned this on last week's show. It's going to kind of pave the way for maybe future VR developers, like finding their feet within Dreams. I think it's a super unique platform, and excited to see what comes out of that. For sure. I think it's been amazing talking to you. I think we could talk to you for hours about your projects, but let's move on to some releases with Rowdy and sort of round up the show. But it's been an absolute pleasure, Lucas. So thank you again for joining us.